Hello, everyone, and welcome to number 2 for takTalks. Yes, yesterday I actually had done this thing with just me twice because I had a little trouble going from this to YouTube Live. So today you're actually getting it, which is super exciting, I hope. Please tell me in the chat if you are not seeing this right now. Today we have a very special guest. I'm sure you all know who he is and who is on. So without further ado, it's Alan Fletcher. Just kidding. He's at home in isolation. Here he is now. Right.
Hi, Tak. Going really well, actually. It's a weird time for everyone. I find myself ringing people more often now to check in on them, see how they're getting on. Probably more than I would if we were all running around the world. So it's been interesting chatting to people about the different experiences. But personally, I kind of enjoying the chill time.
Do you have any tips or secrets to? Because you've been in isolation a little bit longer because you and Jax went on a holiday break. 2 weeks before we stopped.
Yeah, I was supposed to be in Italy right now, actually, which kind of wouldn't have been necessarily the best idea. And mercifully, I know a lot of people were very disappointed we didn't get there for the 35th anniversary celebrations. Of course, the very big night at the Adelphi Theatre was cancelled, or postponed, I should say. I believe it's going to be in October. But the reality is it was a great decision because we probably wouldn't have got home. We may not have got home. And if we had, of course, we would have had to go into compulsory 14-day quarantine. So it's worked out well from that point of view that we didn't go. And obviously things aren't very dire as well from a health point of view. And being in that slightly older bracket, I do have to take a little bit. Yeah, I do have to take a little bit more care, and I'm choosing to actually not go out into the world a great deal. I do go for a walk every day. I try and walk about 10 Ks a day for exercise. So I do go out and walk. I take the puppies to the park, maintaining an obvious distance from everyone. And that's pretty much it, apart from occasionally a bit of shopping if absolutely necessary. In terms of tips, well, I tell you what, I did set myself some goals because I realised that I couldn't afford to just sleep in, get up and, laze around the place and drink 1,000 cups of tea. So I set myself some goals, and one of them was, I don't know how much people know about me, but I'm a very keen photographer, and I have taken photographs all over the world, and I have a Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom here, which has hundreds of catalogues of photos that have never, ever been properly processed or catalogued or anything like that. So I'm working my way through all my old photos. I'm learning songs, a song a day, basically, just trying to get some music going as well. And just seeing myself some challenges.
Maybe we can get you playing a little bit of that new music live. I think people would love that. Just going back quickly to the live shows. Now, you had your own live show, The Doctor Is In, which I very fortunately got to watch what has been the only staging of it so far, which is an incredible show. Now, you've had to postpone those as well. So what are the details on those at the moment?
Yeah. Well, at the moment, I'm heading back to the UK. I'm scheduled to be back in the UK in September. I've actually got the dates here. London, I was doing a show in London. That's been rescheduled to the 16th of September. Then on Glasgow, I'll be there on Monday the 21st. Cottingham, I'll be there on Wednesday the 23rd. Newcastle the 24th, and then Edinburgh on the 30th, and there may be some more gigs, but we don't really know when the theatres are going to open up in the UK. So, it's basically, it's a bit of a leap of faith that the world will have itself substantially straightened out by then. Fingers crossed, but certainly any details about my tour, the front page of my website, alanfletcher.net, has all the details, and that will be updated as things come to hand.
Yeah, and it is an amazing show. We've still got to have a chat. Not that I barely have any notes for you, to be honest. There's only something really minor.
I'm expecting lots of notes. I know, I want lots of notes. It's the whole premise behind the show is I go for a bit of a dance through 25 years of Neighbours, using a lot of video. It's a ton of video, and which is people find very amusing. And we stick a bit of music in there and some photography and so it's a retrospective, and I'm interviewed by my wife, which is hysterical because she knows more about me than anybody, and she calls me out on all the stuff I get wrong.
and it's a very, very fun dynamic. Speaking of your history, Neighbours turned 35. You've now been on the show 25 years, which I saw today was you and I guess it's you and Jax together. Number 3 in longest running soap actors in Australia. I think there's Stuart and then Lynn LaGrange, and then it's you and Jax.
That's interesting. I thought it was cool. Ryan Maloney would be right behind us too. He literally came in as a regular playing Toadie, because he did do it as a guest role for a bit. He came in as a regular just after Jackie and I started, so he's right up there as well. And of course, Tommy Oliver and Ian Smith were on Neighbours for a very long time, as Stephen Dennis has done a big stint too, apart from the fact that he went away for a bit of time in the middle there. So it's a great privilege actually to be such a long-serving cast member. I mean, professionally, as actors, all we ever want to do is act, and if you get to act every day of your working life, then it's a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of episodes you've done, the amount of screen time you've had, like, that's insane. Worldwide, for the history of television, you would be in the top, it'd still be in double digits, I guess, with the amount, how many people would have done in the thousands of episodes of anything.
I think it'd be very, very few, particularly since really it's only in this sort of ongoing serial that this sort of thing is likely to happen. So you've got your Bold and the Beautiful, of course, where a lot of the cast of that were there at the start, and so they have done many, many episodes. So there's a few of us, but it really is pretty much a kind of a handful around the world. Although I'm sure there are soap operas in Bolivia that have been running for 50 years or whatever. I should do more research. Maybe we could form a longevity club, everybody who's been in soaps for a long time.
Yeah.
I'd love to start, I'd love to go and start working on other shows. I think Corrie should have me on, and I should start doing a few swaps with other
absolutely. I think they should. I think there should be some super soap world where we all exist in the same world, so the characters are the same. We just literally walk onto different sets. Because the people who I think who watch Neighbours are also watching Bold and Beautiful. I think they like that kind of TV serial. So I that'd be so cool. I think we should do that.
Yeah,
Jason, if you're listening.
Well, I did actually do it. I did do an audition for Bold and the Beautiful as part of my TV show Photo Number 6. It's a kind of a fake audition where I went on and actually went through the whole process of auditioning for an American show and getting a walk-on part, which was fun, and it was really interesting to find out that in fact the show operated almost identically to the way ours does. So it was interesting to see that the banter on the set, the way the crew behaved. The interaction between the actors, the comedy of it was almost identical.
Yeah, wow. And just to fill people in at home, our crew is... How would you describe our crew, Fletch?
It's a little bit like a kindergarten in there, really. I mean, it's a kindergarten without the teacher. There's an enormous amount of levity, a lot of joking around. And in a way, you kind of need that because the days for the crew are super long. If they're in studio, they're basically stuck in a dark box for many, many hours. Starting pretty much at 7:30 in the morning, and they'll get out of there at 5:45 in the afternoon. Of course, they get a lunch break and a very, very short afternoon tea. But besides that, they're in there the whole time. So it's actually for them pretty frazzling. We come and go. So we can go out and refresh, have a cup of coffee, go for a bit of a walk or whatever. But for them, they're there the whole time. So they kind of rely on us to bring energy into the room, a lot of laughter. They certainly love to send us up, particularly one of the guys on the sound boom, Lipper. He's my arch enemy.
I think he's everyone's arch enemy, isn't he?
Yeah. So yeah, it's an incredibly jovial, but ultimately massively supportive environment. It's interesting that we can switch between being totally stupid in one moment and then switching to complete professionalism. And I think that's kind of a yeah, you've called me out. There's no such thing. I will. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a skill. I think you learn. It's how you can actually really flip between just being kind of crazy and stupid and then go straight into a scene, and that just comes from doing it over and over again. You become very aware when a guest character comes into the show that you've got to be mindful about looking after them, because for them it's completely disorientating. They're focused on getting their lines right and discovering their character. And but if you joke around a little bit, it actually makes them feel at ease, and it's a balance. It's a bit of a balancing act. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know just what you mean. It's kind of a when you're doing Neighbours, we come to it with such an incredible relaxation. Except of course if we're doing big scenes, very tense scenes or whatever, then there can be a little bit of nervousness about whether we're going to hit the marks we need to do emotionally. But in general, it's quite relaxed, and so yeah, it'd be fantastic if every job was like that. But it isn't. You go off and anytime you go off and do another job, particularly if you're doing something like stage where you're in view the whole time. There's no second take. Yeah, it can be petrifying no matter how long you've been doing it. So it's but I love that wonderful sense of relaxation that Neighbours has got, because it allows you to be very creative. It allows you to experiment. You can try things, you can make suggestions.
Yeah, well, especially for you. I think nearly every director we work with, if I if I start making suggestions on any direction, they go, "Oh, what are you now, Fletch?" Because for everyone at home, Fletch has quite the reputation of coming onto set and saying, "So I think, why don't we do this?" and basically standing in front of the director and directing the scene.
Well, I know it can be a bane of the life. One director calls me the anchor. You reckon as soon as I turn up on set, everything's just going to stop. The people do ask, how can you do a show like this for 25 years and one just playing the same character? And that's how I can do it, because for me, I make myself think about every scene I'm in as if it's the first time I've done the show. Every scene has to have equal importance. Some scenes can be quite mundane. You have one line or whatever, and they're not the thing. But I will still be. I still can't stop myself thinking about how can this scene be better. And it might be something that I might say to another actor, if I've got a good working relationship with them, I might say, I'm sorry, it's just to throw the thought in. Maybe this could change if we did it this way.
How about just be better than what you've been doing? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, the old joke. Yeah, the best piece of direction you ever get is be better. Yeah, I mean, and directors have their own shorthand as well. Like if a director sits there and starts talking to you about the dynamic of the scene, what they're actually talking about is asking you to speak faster. Get on with it, less pauses.
Yeah.
So
I was saying that to Shaz and April yesterday about how each director has a different way of communicating, and one of the things I've learned on this job, which I didn't really expect to learn or didn't even think about, was that you learn how to communicate, or at least understand different kinds of directors and know what way you actually prefer to be communicated with. Because people you start to have like, I really love working with that person, and whatever that thing that they do is individual to them. And I think you're a person or an actor who comes on set, which I really admire, because you come on with so much joy, you're having so much fun still 25 years later with every single scene. Like you've been saying, it's not just something that you're saying because we're talking live with people here. It's something that you genuinely follow through on, and I appreciate it so much because it is really freeing, and it makes it so much fun, and it's something that I aspire to do as much as I can. It doesn't always work out as well for me, I think, but I'm trying. But it definitely does help on set. It helps, especially with young actors. That's one of the things I saw when I was doing Family Law. We had a brilliant first on there who was always calm. I could tell when, all right, we're running out of time and things are starting to get stressful behind the scenes, but he would come up onto set with the young actors and they wouldn't have a clue that everyone's screaming to try and get this shot done as fast as possible. And the difference that meant that we didn't do a second take because a kid forgot a line or whatever, because they felt so comfortable that they could keep working and it was easy. We've got a bunch of questions going through in the chat. So just relating to what we've been talking about, and thank you everyone on the chat. It's really great to see you all joining and being so involved. And I want to get to some of your questions as well, so you don't feel like you're typing for no reason. I've been reading them as we're going and trying to incorporate them as best I can. Ness Hill, just asking about cast and crew. How many of us are there? There's just under 30 cast, and then how many crew between the two? You know better than me.
Well, I would say that in the building working on Neighbours at any one time there would have to be between 100 to 150 people, because you've got the staging department who are doing all the props, as well as doing all the artistic banners and so forth. You've got all the writers outside the building. You've got the script editors and so forth inside the building. You've got the schedulers. You've got the entire production team. Then, of course, you get into the crew. Well, on set, on location, the crew would have to be, I don't know, what do you think, Tag? About 12, 15 people in a crew. It does vary on the size of the shoot. Sometimes we have 3 cameras operating and every camera needs a grip and a gaffer. But it can vary, but certainly it's up towards 100 at any one time in and around the building.
Beyond that, and obviously then people are employed through networks and everything else, that publicity, etc., that are then linked to our show as well. So that's one of the reasons why we've got to be so careful now and stay as isolated as we can, because if one of the cast gets sick, that could be hugely detrimental to a lot of people's jobs. So we've got quite a responsibility with that.
I feel that very keenly, and we all know, and I applaud people around the world who are actually taking this COVID-19 seriously and are staying home and are being really conscious about distancing. I think it's admirable. There's obviously not, unlikely there'll ever be a cure for the illness. I'm a bit of an optimist though, and I do feel as though the amount of money that's been put into research, etc., that there are glimmers of hope that they will develop drugs that can help prevent COVID-19 from attaching itself, the virus itself, coronavirus, attaching to cells. That's a bit of a sort of a fingers crossed hope. And of course, we all dream of that vaccine. The Australia's chief medical officer said that he didn't consider that there would be a conclusion to or an end to the coronavirus without a vaccine. I mean, it will always be like a lot of them, SARS and MERS.
Is it reinfecting? Does it have a reinfection rate?
The jury's completely out on that. There's, from what I've heard, there's been a couple of cases in China and South Korea, I think, where it's claimed the person who was cleared, who caught the disease and then was negative, appeared to recatch it or become reinfected, and that the jury's out on it because it could have been a false negative test.
True.
So they may have been positive the whole time. So the norm, as I understand it, is that once a person develops the antibodies for things like influenzas and this type of virus, that their body then has a degree of immunity for anything up to a couple of years. Right. So that's that. But as the testing regimes improve, they'll get a much better picture how this virus manifests itself.
Now, if you've just joined us, thank you. You're now talking. We're on Doctor Chat, so.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's important that the worst thing that can happen and is happening is this constant misinformation that's being slung around, and I'm the last person who want to say anything that could be considered misinformation. So, I don't claim to be an authority on anything. I do know though that there's I know what my responsibilities are, and I think if we know what our responsibilities are, then we can just action on those, and that is. I religiously wash my hands, of course. I keep my social distance, and yes, the hand sanitizer, which I carry with me wherever I go. It's in the car. Sometimes people sort of say, "Oh, how you're being ridiculous. You're being over the top with the amount of cleaning you're doing." The fact is, the virus does survive particularly on plastic surfaces and so forth for a reasonable period of time. Not so much on cardboard, but it can hang around, and someone touches a doorknob. Well, why not sanitize around your house periodically to prevent it? And I'm a chronic face toucher. Right? I'm a shocker. I always, and when they say you don't touch your face, what happens? You immediately
you become so conscious of everything on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. You touch my face a lot too. It's quite weird. You like touching people's faces.
Yeah, that's slapping.
Oh, Jackie knows how to slap. We've seen that from Susan Kennedy.
Yeah, surely have. She's the best right hand in the business.
Yeah. Just to answer someone's question from the chat. We filmed 3 months in advance to, I guess, because of how they've split up with the UK now doing 2 nights a week, but 3 nights in advance, 3 months in advance, sorry, not 3 nights. And then I think we've actually shot a little bit. It sort of changes from term to term because we kind of follow a school term. So we have a couple week breaks here and there. And obviously the broadcast catches up and then we get further ahead. And I think doing 6 episodes a week is what propels us forward. A lot of people ask, and I'm sure you've been told so much for all the favourites. Who's your all-time favourite character, favourite scene, favourite set, favourite whatever? Do you have any actual favourites of things that you want to talk about or say?
Oh yeah, I sure do.
This is good.
I mean, the thing is, the big thing people always want to know is what's your favourite episode, and I never had a favourite episode until I shot episode 7000, which became my favourite episode because it was partly because it's what I love doing, which is stupid. Anything stupid. I love doing stupid stuff. I love comedy. So in that particular episode, Carl he's got a bit of spare time, a bit of loose time, so he's just mucking around. He finds a scratchy ticket. One of the scratchies that and it hasn't been scratched, and it's worth $7,000. Well, Carl Kennedy, we know he's pretty stingy. $7,000 is a million to him, so he's very excited. But he's on a quest to find lemons that day, so he can make some lemon curd. So he roams all over Erinsborough, loses his scratchy ticket, and has to retrace his steps. And he has adventures the whole way. When he eventually gets to Toadie's place, Toadie's hosting a naturalist lunch. So he's nude in there with his guests, and the only way Carl can get in is if he nudes up as well. So being nude in Toadie's house and finding the scratchy stuck to Toadie's ass was the highlight of my life. I love that episode to death. And in terms of other favourites, of course, there's some absolutely classic moments with Jackie, where the big affair moments, and with Izzy. I think Paul Robinson being in bed with Izzy when I came home one time, and he ends up going under the bed and tickling her toes while I try and make love to her. That was that was quite a day. I mean, one of my favourites is when I had to ostensibly give Stingray a medical examination on the possibility he might have some sort of venereal disease. And we did this bizarre scene where he sat on my kitchen bench with his back to camera while I ostensibly had a look at his bits. We got up to some weird stuff. So there's a lot of silly things like that, stealing gnomes and blah, blah, blah.
Has there been a moment that's been like for you as an actor where you felt the most there, where you've gone or you've come out of it going, that scene I couldn't, there was no, that was perfect to me and how I did, I was just so absorbed in it. Is there, like, I mean, I'm sure you would do it all the time because you're amazing, but like, I think us actors are critical.
It's a really good question because, there are some scenes you become, big emotional scenes that you become really absorbed in. I think one day of filming that I will never forget was when Libby married Drew and we had their wedding reception. And because the church service was beautiful, that was shot on location. And then we had the reception in studio. So it was kind of an entire day to shoot the reception. These big scenes take a long time. But it didn't feel like work because I'm very close to Kim Valentine, and it was almost like I was actually watching my own daughter get married. And so all the speeches were very emotional, very enjoyable. Everyone was so connected into all the moments. The lovely Danny Paris, sings to Libby, and it was just glorious because he's Scottish and he's kilt. A glorious day, and it just didn't feel like work. It just felt like, man, we're all in this here together, and it felt real and beautiful. That was a great day.
Yeah, well, that's really nice. Do you have a favourite set that you like to work on?
Oh, yeah, wow, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that. Favorite.
Do you like studio or do you like location, which is outside or inside for everyone at home?
I think I'd probably prefer studio because I love working fast. And in the early days of Neighbours, we were even faster because they had 3 cameras, and all 3 cameras they used to switch between them. So the director and the director's assistant would actually kind of edit the show as it went along. And over the years, we've become a lot more sophisticated. The shooting quality is much higher, and obviously we're in high definition. And so now we shoot like it's a film and it's edited. So that's a lot better angles, better lighting, looks amazing. But part of me as a stage actor quite liked those early days because it was almost like we were doing a play that they happened to be filming. So, we'd start the scene and finish the scene in one go, and they'd get the scene. You had to be completely on your money. Every mark had to be hit perfectly. Every line had to be said perfectly. There was there was no kind of, can I just pick that up? It was no, we have to go back to the beginning.
Fun fact, that's how Play School shoots. It used to record directly to film, they'd live switch it, which is why in a lot of those older episodes, if you watch through till the end, that last 5 minutes, a lot of sexual innuendo starts getting into it because the actors know there's no way they're doing this again, so they started to play a bit. Now they do it a bit, they break it up more into sort of segments, but you're still doing 3 camera shoot, and then 1 camera will drift away, and then you'll finish with the 2 cameras, and then somebody else, that other presenter starts talking, and the cameras drift across. And it's that same thing. It's like long takes. And I always talk about it being the hardest show I've shot because technically you're monitoring yourself. You're having to talk to a camera as if it's a 5-year-old kid quietly sitting and trying to make it a really enjoyable thing from them and make it sound like everyone asks if it's improvised. And it's really not. Everything's scripted perfectly. There's child educators who scour the script, who come to rehearsal, watch it, make sure that every word's going to translate to a child. So every word is specific, so you've got to do all this, meanwhile holding little cardboard things with faces on them, and you can't see the faces because you're looking at the camera, and the camera doesn't want to ever see you looking at the monitor, so you have to always look at the camera and hope that your faces are facing the right direction, which is a little bit crazy. So it's cool to hear that's how Neighbours used to be shot.
Such a tough gig. Unfortunately, I never got to see you on Play School because my nippers had grown up by the time you were on it. And so Noni Hazelhurst was kind of our Play School.
Yeah, she was for me too.
Yeah, when the nippers were very young. Some people do sometimes ask, would we shoot a live episode of Neighbours, because some soaps have done it. I'm praying that we never do it. I think it would be a disaster.
You have no confidence in us, Fletch. No confidence.
Oh no, it's just I remember seeing one Australian show did a live episode of Blue Hill.
I remember watching that.
it was ridiculous. You could see actors waiting in the wings, and no, it's I don't think we need to be going there.
Oh, well, we're doing a live chat. Isn't that enough? This is all live.
That'll do it. That'll do it. We should have got ourselves a Neighbours script for Dr. Dr. Tanaka talking to Dr. Kennedy.
Oh well, we can do it next time then. we can film our own Neighbours episode live through Skype.
Yeah.
That would be. I mean, I think we'd have to hit I don't know if we can get 10,000 people watching at once, then maybe we'd put in the effort. I don't know if we'd do it just yet though.
So I've just got a non-COVID.
You have to worry now. Every time you cough, everyone's like, "What? You?"
I know.
And they all run away. It is a good way to clear a room if you're worried.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to get a table.
Soupy Jackie asked, we've had a few famous people on set. Which famous person would you like to do a scene with on Neighbours? So it doesn't even have to be. I guess I'm making that a 2-part question. So who's been really enjoyable as far as those star cameos, and anyone that you wish would come on, both someone who realistically might and someone who just never would, maybe.
Right. Well, I think probably my favourite was when Carl and Susan went to London to get married. Well, he got married there. We of course we had lots of wonderful cameos. Neil Morrissey and Emma Bunton and so forth. Julian Clary was there. He was fantastic, very funny guy. But Sir Michael Parkinson popped in, and that was my favourite because he loves cricket. Right, it's his big thing, and he would come to Australia every year to see the Ashes if they were playing here, and so he and I were talking cricket, and the director we're standing on a London street, there's people everywhere looking at us, and the director's going, "We kind of need to shoot this scene, guys." He said, "Yeah, just hang on a second." We'd finish our conversation about Freddie Flintoff or something. So that was enormous fun. In terms of having a famous guest on, I reckon it'd be really cool. The person I would really love to have on is a muso, and Chris Martin was a very big fan of Neighbours when Coldplay first formed.
Right.
He very cool guy, and Coldplay came to Melbourne to play a gig, but it was a gig in a venue that only holds 250 people. Is called Chapel Off Chapel. It's where you saw my show. And so it was kind of the record company just testing the water to see how people felt about Coldplay in Australia. And Chris Martin and the band came out to visit the Neighbours set. I didn't know much about Coldplay then. I knew the song, but not much. Said hello to them. Wished them the best, saying, I hope it all goes well, fellas. And they came back, of course, 10 years later as one of the biggest bands in the world. And they had a bit of a link up, particularly with Toadie. So Chris Martin invited the cast to come and see the concert, and then we had a bit of a reception with him afterwards. And which ironically turned out to be his birthday. So he's such a cool guy, such an amazing musician, and because he loves Neighbours, he would be my favourite celebrity guest.
That'd be awesome.
To have on the
We're going to
show,
try and get that happening. I don't know if he has any time to do such a thing, but it'd be cool if he did. So we'll look, next time Coldplay is touring, we've got to try and hook this up. Speaking of your...
Can you hear in the background,
I
by the way?
can't. I don't know if people at home can. Maybe they can.
He's whining.
Hey, there he is.
Come here.
What's his name?
Come here. His name's Teddy.
Oh, Teddy.
And he's quite upset about the fact that he isn't eating because it's tea time.
Oh, what a
poor little boy. You'll have to be patient. Sorry. You'll have to be patient.
Oh. That's why I wish Mia was friendly with other dogs, because she's a rescue and she would have been attacked when she was even littler, and so she sees another dog, she's going nuts. But otherwise, I would have loved for them to have had a play date once all of this is over and we could do such a things. Because
well, maybe Mia could start doing YouTube live. I'm just going to
do what you need. You can still hear me, so I'll keep talking. We're talking about how you come onto the set and direct scenes incidentally.
That's a bit of an overstatement.
Well, you have very strong suggestions. Let's put it that way. But what I was getting at was, would you, or why haven't you even gone down the directing route, either on Neighbours or more in general?
Yeah. Oh, well, a long time ago, one of our directors, the wonderful Gary Conway, who now sadly passed away recently, Gary actually asked the producers to let me train with him to direct, and they said absolutely not. They said, we're not going to have an actor, directly on Neighbours. Now, of course, now we have Kate Kendall, Scotty Major as actors directing, and quite a number of actors have actually come through Neighbours from outside Neighbours and have become directors. So, it's something that for a while I thought, it'd be really cool to do this. I'd really love to do it, and it's kind of one of those things where I feel as though if I was to direct now, I'd probably just end up kind of just doing it the same way everyone else is, but worse. They're trained to do it. The one thing I really would like to do is do more work with actors. I think that directing television is very much a logistical exercise for a director because, you think about it like this. There's in any episode of Neighbours, there's what do you reckon? 22 scenes, Tak? Something like that.
Yeah.
In an episode, 22 scenes, and so some of them can be very, substantially, probably 13, 14 substantial scenes, and we do 6 episodes a week. So in a block, the director is doing an enormous amount of material.
Yeah.
So they have to block those scenes. They have to think about logistically how to shoot them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the director's head is full. And somewhere in there, they've also got to give direction to the actors. So they do rely on us an enormous amount to...
Enter Alan Fletcher.
Well, the thing is that most of the directors... I've never had a director turn around and say, just quit, could you just shut up? They'll always listen. But sometimes I love Mia. Oh, she's gorgeous.
People are asking to see Mia.
Well, they should see it. Mia actually had an injury not so long ago and came to work, and she spent a very sad. She had such a sad little face. She's got that little gorgeous sad face, and she was especially sad when she was injured. Bless her little cotton socks. Hello, darling. Hello, Mia.
Oh,
wonderful.
She loves the camera, don't she, boo? I'll pass it back to Amy. Amy brought it in for me. Sorry to interrupt you there, Fletch.
No, not at all. So, the idea of giving suggestions and stuff is sometimes I might just go over and see a director between takes and just whisper a suggestion, sort of going, hey, my gut feeling is that we're down a bit on pace here, or that we need to start picking this up or doing that or whatever. And often I'll sit back and say, you're right. Let's try it. I mean, the big thing about our creative industry is there's not really any kind of right way of doing things. No. There's just choices, and having the time and the luxury to explore choices is what you get when you're in the theatre, because you rehearse for 5 weeks and you sit there and go, well, let's try this, let's try that. But in TV, it's so fast. Sometimes you have to use a bit of shorthand and just try and push things along a bit.
Yeah. No, well, I would really enjoy you doing that role. I mean, we basically had someone do what you're describing in terms of coming on just to work with the actors more. Deborah Lee Finesse, who, if people don't know, is quite an accomplished actor herself, but also married to Hugh Jackman, and she has a charity called Adopt for Change. So she's tied in a lot with adoption and fostering and protecting kids, really. And we just shot, and I can say it's because even though it's a spoiler, but it's already been put out there. She came on to direct Aaron and David or Takaya and Maddie as Aaron and David in a foster kid storyline. and we have this brilliant kid named Ezra, who is playing a young boy who comes on, and Deb was brought in. She's directing opposite Kate Kendall, and or not opposite, with Kate Kendall, and she was very much doing that thing of where she worked a lot with us as actors, working on each scene, and then would be still storyboarding out the scenes and those episodes as well. But then with KK there to go, we need to do this, or one of the technical things, or with doing a show like Neighbours, with before for people at home, before a commercial break has to end on a close up. It can't end on a wide for whatever reason. So there's also the scenes where Kate would be coming in saying we need this shot or this shot or this shot. But Deb was definitely working with us in that sense that you were, and it was brilliant for me and Maddie, because then we had someone who was actually checking that we were doing kind of what we should, and because it's easy to get into a certain amount of autopilot, or even not. You get comfortable, so you don't push yourself maybe as hard as you should in some scenes. So it's great to have someone there who's really putting a finger on every line and making sure that you were getting as much out of it as you could. Which we're just shooting so much, so it's very difficult, and I think she felt the time pressure. That's for sure. But it's a really nice thing to have.
Well, yes. I mean, I didn't get to work with Deb, but I watched her working, and it was really interesting to watch. Someone who's not a trained director, but they're talking to actors and giving suggestions to actors and giving input to actors and helping them with their choices, which is such a valuable thing. And of course, it's not to say that our directors don't do that. Our directors do direct the actors, but there's just no time to examine choices. But so sometimes we have to sit there and go, we have to remind each other that, sometimes to get back on the ball a bit, just to focus some moments. And to sometimes play against stuff. It's very easy to fall into the trap of playing what we call the big print, which is where the writer has made some suggestions about where the character might be emotionally, actually written on the page. And sometimes as actors, you have to sit there and say, well, no, actually, I don't think my character is devastated at that point. I think that there's something else going on there. So, just different choices, really.
Yeah. So moving, let's check back in with the chat to see if anyone's got any questions before we move on from Neighbours. I'd love any Neighbours. Oh, Neighbours Hood, yeah. I don't know at this stage whether Neighbours Hood will be coming back at all. I really enjoy them. And Ben's great.
I think Benny Nicholas used to shoot those, didn't he?
And Ben Nicholas is quite exceptional at the stuff that he's been doing for 10 Peach and stuff, that online little shorts and stuff of interviewing us or whatever. The stuff that he comes up with on the spot, the comedy and stuff, is really impressive. It's quite a skill. I think people under appreciate in terms of utilizing him, underappreciate the level of skill he has at being able to make something as mundane as us two talking really, really entertaining. So I hope he gets to do more.
It's a fascinating thing. It goes to the point too about how Neighbours, how it trains people and what a great training ground it is. I mean, young Benny Nicholas came on to play Stingray. He right from the start, he was always a very funny boy, a very talented music theatre performer, great singer, tap dancer, etc. Not many people knew that, and but he was a live wire and very, very funny. But he's been able to take that, and he directs now. He shoots stuff. He's got great camera skills, direction skills, etc., editing skills. So he's developed. Jonathan Dutton, another one, a young actor who came onto Neighbours and now runs a production company. So there's quite a few actors who've trained on Neighbours to become and gone on to do other wonderful
work
work
on the production side of things. I did have a question, but anyway, let's move on to your music. Now, did the music start for you before Neighbours?
Well, no. Apart from doing music theatre, I did quite a bit of music theatre before Neighbours, particularly in Perth, where I started out. But no, the music started when I was out to dinner with my wife. It was Valentine's Day. couple of musos were playing there, just busking away, and she reckons I asked if I could sing a song with them, and I reckon they asked me. Doesn't matter. We ended up playing together. I sang a few songs, and they suggested that perhaps we should look at maybe putting a band together. And I said to them, look, I can't go off and gig in pubs until 3 a.m. doing 3 45-minute sets. I just can't do that because of my work. But we had the Neighbours nights in Melbourne, which was every Monday night at the Elephant Wheelbarrow. A lot of people on the chat now might remember those nights fondly. And so I set my band up playing there, and it just took off. It was fantastic. Audiences loved it. The UK found out about it. The rest is history. We did about 10 tours in the UK, and the band became really, really quite well known. So, I mean, most people thought the band was going to be terrible because Dr. Carl's not known for his music. But the musos behind me were brilliant. And so I think we created a really great, punchy live wire act. We also wrote originals and sold our albums. Our albums have sold quite well. So, yeah, it's been a real joy. And I love writing music, particularly Christmas songs are my passion.
Yeah. Well, you had a recent one, right? The one that was out in end of last year, right?
Yeah. Well, of course, on the Neighbours episode, Christmas episode, I sang my own composition, If You Want a Happy Christmas, which was a joy to do, actually. It was really lovely that the producers incorporated the song in the show.
Oh, yeah.
That's all you do. Peeps, go to Google Alan Fletcher and the Pacific Bells. You can find If You Want a Happy Christmas.
It's great. Everyone should do that. Well, not right now. Wait till we're finished talking, and then you can go and do it. Or open a new tab. That'll be fine. You can still hear us then. I really love it when any of the actors really get to sing their stuff on the show. Obviously, Bonnie's done it a fair bit recently. But I think it's we should utilise those skills, really. And why not?
Well, I say Benny Hall and Bonnie often sing together for Instagram and do some fun things. It's really worth following Bonnie for that reason, if nothing else, because she just does some fantastic improvised stuff online. Ben's got a beautiful voice, That's a voice.
Incredible whistler too.
Could be
he can whistle so well.
Yeah, how's your whistling?
Well, my whistling's alright. I can do like bird calls and stuff, but there's something in his tonality. His whistle is really rounded. That's the only way I can describe it.
Does he do the whistle like that, or does he do the?
He's not tongue whistling so much. It is not, but there's something in he's creating like a resonance in his mouth. This is interesting live chat talking about Ben Hall's whistling.
Don't worry. Next week, everybody tune in when takTalks will be doing yodeling.
Oh gosh, we probably will. So definitely tune in for that. I think it'll be really entertaining. But now, so we'll move on from music quickly to photography. Obviously, photography started for you before Neighbours. Yep. You were shooting a lot of actors' headshots, right?
I did. For 20 years, I shot headshots, and I was still shooting them when I was working on Neighbours. Actors are always going to be insecure about their income, so photography was a great backup for me. I also loved it because I was shooting actors. It was very much as much about directing the person being photographed as it was taking photographs. So getting the warmth and the relaxation out of them and getting the character to come through. But I was doing it while I was doing Neighbours for about 10 years, I think, and it was mad. I used to, I had 2 young children. I used to come home. If I had like 2 hours off work, I'd rush home and do a photo session and then go back to work. And then at night, I'd get into the dark room to do their prints because everything was, of course, machine printed. So, the stupid hours of the night. I really pushed myself to the end until eventually I thought to myself, no. After 10 years of Neighbours, surely it's time to give this away. And of course it coincided with the music coming along as well. So I moved into the music. Yeah, but it was really rewarding. It was terrific to photograph photograph my colleagues. I mean, I photographed a lot of Neighbours actors, and as well as Well, I've literally thousands of actors I
You
photographed over
definitely
the
have
years.
a
So
good
yeah,
blooper reel, I'd imagine, of Neighbours actors and stuff. From because for any actor who does a headshot, I'm talking to everybody out there. Everyone actor who does a headshot shoot, there's a lot of photos taken, and there's definitely ones that aren't very good. So you've got a lot of ammunition there.
there's some shockers. Yeah, I could blackmail people, I guess. But that was, of course, that was pre-digital. When I eventually went digital for myself, but not to work, and travel photography has always been my passion. Traveling and taking photos, and trying to learn how to take better travel photos. I still do a lot of study, still do a lot of YouTube videos and things, just trying to improve those skills and download ebooks. And I'm gluttonous to try and improve my skills. And every now and again, I'll come back and look at my stuff and go, yeah, I can see changes, I can see improvements. So that's partly why I started up the show Photo Number 6, which was the travel and photography. That's been on in Australia on Channel 10 twice, and it's still on 10 Play. If you wanted to check it out, you can still see it on 10 Play. And the UK's bought it; they just haven't shown it yet. So Channel 5 will eventually show Photo Number 6. They may be a bit reticent at the moment to show it because, of course, people can't travel. So they might sort of find that they don't have no interest in watching a travel show. But I don't know, it could work the other way. They want to see travel shows.
It's interesting that
you
did so many headshots, or maybe this is why, but now a lot of the stuff that you'll show are landscapes. Is that a reaction to having to shoot so many faces for so many years?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Shooting portraits when you're traveling is a real skill because you've got to be sensitive to the fact that you're trying to capture a person's image, and a lot of people around the world do not take kindly to being photographed candidly, particularly in countries where the moral or religious systems are a lot stricter than ours, and so to get portraits when you travel is a great skill. I had a long chat with a friend of mine, Gina Malicha, who's a wonderful travel photographer, has an amazing blog called So You Want to Be a Photographer and podcast. And she's very, very accomplished at doing it. It takes quite a long time because really if you want to get a good portrait of someone when you're traveling, you often need to have time to sit down with them, talk to them, get to know them, and sort of say, until eventually you get to the point going, would you mind if I took your photo? And sort of like really, really work hard at that. So often for me, I love the outdoors, and I love finding great landscapes, and then working very hard to try and get the best out of that landscape. So yeah, it's even just doing city photography, for instance, is not a forte of mine. It's something I want to learn more about. And with iPhones and some of the incredible Android phones now, the resolution is incredible. There's a great skill in just doing iPhoneography, which I have to say I really quite enjoy. Just taking the iPhone out. I've got some very expensive cameras, but as I say, the best camera you have is the one you've got in your hand.
That's right. Which is a philosophical way to look at it, and people out there might know or might not know that you're quite interested in philosophy. I think it's something that maybe ties in with a lot of actors. We are studiers of human behaviour. Philosophy kind of sits sort of to the side of that in a way. What brought you to studying philosophy?
and psychology. Yeah. I mean, I studied philosophy at university and a university level, and I love it because I still read philosophical texts. I'm a huge fan of Alain de Botton, who's the English philosopher who writes books for living, basically. He founded the School of Life, and his books are more about taking the lessons we can learn from philosophers and applying them to our everyday life. So practical philosophy. And it's amazing. It can be quite transformative when you sit back and go, okay, in this moment, the Stoics kind of have have something that I can really use, or the existentialists or whatever, And I also love the self-examination aspect of philosophy. The fact that we don't become complacent about the world we live in. We actually sit there and say, flesh out why we do things and decide what is ethical here. What is it ethical to do this? Is it ethical to do that? So it's a crucial part of our lives. Interesting, we've got this horrible thing going on at the moment with COVID-19, where doctors all around the world are making agonising decisions about who gets life-saving care, and there's all the life and death issues. Well, hospitals and universities are full of ethicists trying to help people make the decisions about these very things. And it's as soon as you sit there and go, well, who should get preference? You've opened up the biggest can of worms you can possibly open up. So philosophy is there to help us with that.
Is there something, philosophical saying or idea that you find yourself using even on a daily? That's something that you've learned that you just keep reminding yourself of?
Yeah, I think this. I do think we have a lot to. We can learn a lot from Stoicism, which, in its most basic terms, is basically sitting there going, you could expect the worst to happen. If you wake up every morning thinking, well, this could be the day that the sky falls in. At the end of the day, if the sky hasn't fallen in, you've had a win.
Yeah,
that's trivializing it a bit, but it is. Part of it. It really strikes a chord with me in a way because. And maybe it's about thinking about getting older or whatever, because when I was younger, I used to rage against the world and try and change the world and, constantly pushing hard against the world, and believing I knew what was right. As you get older, you actually realise that, you don't really know much more than anybody else, and you're not always right. And you become much more accepting of the fact that bad stuff happens. And, I don't personally believe in a God. I don't mind if anyone does, or I don't. I'm an atheist. So I need to have kind of ways of looking at the world that give me some solace. Because, of course, the people who follow religion, that's one of the great benefits of religion, is it often gives solace to people. It gives a reason for living. It gives them a blueprint for living. So I have to find my own. And Stoicism gives me some assistance there because it basically reminds me that anything can happen at any time, and I should actually be very grateful for the wonderful little moments that do go right, or the beautiful things that do happen in life, instead of focusing on all the bad stuff that happens in life.
It's that practice of gratitude, basically.
Basically, yeah. And looking at the world a little bit closer, just getting out, and just what's wonderful to walk. You see houses you never saw before. You see plants and flowers and things you never noticed. And, you come across animals and dogs and cats and, they're sitting on fences, and you stop for a little minute and go, what a gorgeous cat. And just slow down a little and let the world come to you. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really, really, really nice note to end on. Thank you very much, Alan Fletcher, for coming along. Thank you, everyone who's joined and has been in the chat. Really appreciate it. I hope you've gotten something out of this. Leave me comments or whatever with things that you'd want to change. But thank you very much, Alan Fletcher, for joining.
Thanks. And please, people, if you didn't like anything we had to say, don't troll us, please. I beg you.
No hate in the comments. Constructive criticism, I'm okay with having. All right, thanks, Fletch.
Yeah. Look after yourself. Everyone out there, please take every care. Hey, stay at home, wash your hands, keep your distance, and we can beat this thing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan Fletcher. I think what we've just seen then with Fletch is an eternally curious mind who seemingly has an endless amount of energy. The amount of stuff that Fletch does is quite incredible. So I hope you've gotten something out of that. Now, I'd want to announce tomorrow's chat. Our special guest is going to be my on-screen dad. Sorry if you lost me there, guys. Stephen Dennis, who I found this, I hope I don't get in trouble from the record company, this image from his hit, Don't It Make You Feel Good, which I hope you can all join us for. But thank you very much for coming along today, for joining in on the chat. If you're watching this later on, thank you for watching it later on. Make sure you hit the subscribe button with the alerts so that you get told when I am up live again. It'll be 5:30 again tomorrow night, which I'll see you back here. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye, guys.